we will, for the quarterfinals of the WardiTV Christmas Day Games 2022, go to the top left-hand side of Moondance, where we will introduce the underdog based on his match history against his opponent here today from Basilisk. This is Trigger. And I've been making some YouTube thumbnails earlier, so I'm going to do a cheeky little switch on the damage health bars. I was just making some YouTube thumbnails. You know how it is, guys. Got to get those thumbnails looking good, looking pristine. Got to put my face on it, looking all silly. Try and get those, big hits. No, I don't do that. My YouTube, every time I try and do something weird with my YouTube thumbnails, my entire YouTube audience just doesn't click the video. It's actually kind of incredible. Bottom right-hand side, our blue Zerg player, who will be a favorite, 11-0 in match history against Trigger. This is Solar in the bottom right from Onside Gaming. Cast him the other day in a Lima League. He was looking fantastic there. 2-0 over Hero, most notably in the round of 8 of that event, I believe. And yeah, I mean, he had a hell of a run. I won't spoil much more than that because they might be videos that go up on the YouTube later. The Solar Hero one won't because that was a bit of a stomp. But the semi-finals and finals might go up, so I will not spoil anything for you guys that are watching on YouTube. If you are watching on YouTube, hello. Merry Christmas period. I think this one obviously will go up on probably the 27th of December, so kind of getting past that kind of initial swarm of Christmas. I hope you're all feeling well and having a great time. Thanks for watching on the YouTube channel. As we have ourselves a Cybercore being placed, and not really anything immediately kind of wild on this map. The probe didn't get a block, so the hatchery does go down on the proper natural expansion. And other than that, we're basically just kind of going hatch gas pool versus the Nexus, so really waiting to see what the differences, what the change-ups, and what the plays are going to be here over the next few minutes. Hatchery will finish up. And yeah, we'll see what sort of tech we're going to see. Trigger, to me, is someone who just likes to play very standard Stargates, Oracles. But again, nowadays we do mix in those Resonating Glaive builds, etc. a lot as well, so probably expecting at least some amount of those to be brought into play throughout the course of this upcoming match. Going to be seeing our Adept Chrono boosting out this gateway, and a couple of Lings going on a chase for this probe as well, so just going to try and hunt this down. Obviously, probe wanted to stick around as long as possible, try and get some information, check a third base. That's hard on this map because it could maybe be on the in base. The Zergs typically do expand outwards, but there's no guarantee. And I'm wrong already about the tech choice. It is going to be a Twilight Council from Trigger. I mean, to be fair, like I say, in this meta, playing some Glaives is really something we see a lot of, so it's not that unusual. We'll follow over the Robo facility as well. That means Trigger does not have the gas to start Glaives immediately. Keep an eye on when he starts that, or if maybe there's a world in which he mixes this up and plays into like an Archon drop with the DT opening. That also could be a little bit of a possibility here, something that could be used to mix things up just a little bit. Adept gets the Ling. Robotics facility is producing. And just going to be having the Adept making its way from the bottom right through the natural expansion. And a few more Lings just continue to gather up together. There's our gateways. It is indeed Glaives. And it's just going to be the 4-gate Glaive version as well. So Trigger hoping for some early damage here on Moondance. And hoping to be able to put a dent into Solar's economy as we get things underway. Adept moves to the upper left. Warp gate coming up. Adept just continue to produce. A couple of extra gateways coming down. And do you have the warp prisms going to be popping very shortly as the pylon comes over to the side of the main base as well. I'm just going to get that put down. And the Roadshoran, Lings, Queens, all of that continue to produce as well. A couple of gateways still coming up. The Zergling of Solar makes its way out to the upper left side. Again, it just wants to scout as well. Usually you actually have, he's going to see the Adepts here. Very often you have like a Ling here, for example, just patrolling, watching for the prism leaving. I feel like Solar in this case is just feeling pretty comfortable about what's going on. He had a full scout apparently earlier, so he doesn't need those Lings patrolling to figure out what this is. He is very aware of what this is, and so he will just continue without issue. The Adepts will shade forward, and the Queens begin to get into position. The Adepts will shade by. Not quite going to commit into that expansion. I'm just going to be seeing the Adepts and the Prism making their way down still to the south. A few extra Adepts warping as well. I mean, so this is 450, and you've got 12 Adepts on the front doorstep of the Zerg. Queens and Roaches will meet them initially. Obviously, Trigger can take that backward base. This is 2 less mineral patches and 1 less gas. but it is an easier base to take, so you can obviously get a little bit greedier on that. This Observer as well. It's so funny because I was casting some of the balanced test games recently, and if you're watching on YouTube, you'll probably see those in the next week or so after this event is finished uploading. But the Observers are actually so big on the balanced test mod, it's actually ridiculous. Like, I look at this Observer now, I'm like, wow, you're such a mini little guy. Yesterday, when I was casting the games on the balance test, I was like, yeah, Observers look a bit bigger, but seeing how small the Observers are, like, going back, it's like, oh my goodness, you guys are tiny. Little tadpoles in a pond. Alright, Robobait, the follow-up from Trigger as well. These Adepts really have not dealt damage. So Solo's been pretty okay. He's lost 3 Lings and an Overlord. Now, the Adepts are still alive, so they're still a threat. It means that Solo's been pretty okay throughout this. He will now continue to drone, and he gets his lair set up as well. So it's not like this has been without sacrifice from Solo. He's on a much later lair than he would usually like to be. He's on a much lower drone count than he would be if there was not Adepts on the map. So Trigger has still succeeded in that regard. It's just typically you'd expect to have some amount of damage done, some amount of fear punched into the heart of Solo here just to get him a little bit kind of shaky at least. It's just he's not even found a chance to get like 2 Adepts into a mineral line and just get a couple of drones, right? And obviously you can see that Trigger at least is keeping up with the pro production, but that can only go so far because Trigger's in-base expansion is going to be fully saturated very quickly. So very soon, it's going to be time for him to cut. I mean, you're basically down 7 workers from what you need to be. So instead of 66 with 3 base saturation, it's 59. Because it's 4 minerals, or 4 workers on mineral patches you don't need, and 3 on a gas. So yeah, he's pretty much fully saturated on his bases. And now it's time for him to focus toward unit production. Solo will go for a Spire on the natural expansion. The Prism pulling back up through the middle of the map. And the Adepts will just escape away. Or keep away, at least, to the left-hand side. You drop down the gateway, so a few gateways all coming in. Robobase still producing some disruptors. Stalkers on the way in as well. And again, that single circling just going to go on a cheeky little adventure. Wants to try and scout spot for this base coming up, because again, with Trigger fully saturated, it might be time for him to think about a 4th as well. And it looks as though he does want to put that down. The Ling did go to the natural though. Saw a couple of Mortals, not sure if he saw the disruptor. Either way, I'm a little bit worried that Trigger does not have information on this Spire. Obviously, it's one of the great games to go Spire in because it was a Twilight opening. You haven't really taken damage, so you can afford to go for the Spire as well. And Solo's just doing this off of 66 drones, so he's very comfortable basically making a bunch of meters and then probably swarming a little bit on the ground as well. And just using the time it takes for the 4th base to come online to get those initial kind of meters underway. The Prism is just venturing forward on its own. I'm not sure what happened here from Trigger. Obviously, right now, he's fighting in the center of the map, or he must have missed a Disruptor shot. Looks like Disruptor picked up 4 roaches, so that at least is nice, but you lose your Prism, so you lose your reinforcements to this army. It's a hell of a time to push, because obviously the meters are just being made, but now he's pulling back against these Zerglings. This Disruptor shot misses, and this is actually becoming kind of painful, because now Trigger's all the way back at home. Yeah, it's only a small map, but the meters are going to come out for free, and they're going to get a chance to actually be set up on the map, rather than being caught in production. Now that's a costly kind of pullback from Trigger, and Solo playing well to force Trigger to get back there. So this is looking as though Trigger is in trouble. Like I say, I'm worried big time about these meters showing up and putting some work in. And Disruptors will have some work to do on the ground. But again, what defense do we have against meters? There's no cannons and mineral lines or anything, so the preparation is absolutely nil. The scouting from Trigger just has not been there. And as these meters fly across into this mineral line, we'll go after a whole bunch of probes. A couple of workers start to go down already. On the right side, we do have Stalker, Adept, Disruptor pushing forward as well. We're going to be seeing our Lings, Roaches, and Ravages also trying to get involved a little bit. We put a cheeky little force field down over here. Disruptor shot lands for a Ravager. Our Lings want to surround. Our Roaches coming from the other side. Another Disruptor shot. Roaches taking damage there too. We're just going to be seeing our Zerglings continuing to drop. I mean, we've already lost 18 probes across the map, though. So Trigger is going to be at the point where he's almost all in with this. These meters not taking a lot of damage. Trigger might be able to get this base, but can he continue to do well against reinforcements? That Disruptor just way too in the open. It needed to be back over here behind the other units, right? And then you can get shots like this one, which are obviously very effective. Here come the meters. The Stalkers will blink back to try and focus purely on the mutalists, but they just can't really get that few moments that they need to focus on the meters here. And it really feels as though this game is going to be a little bit out of control. Stalkers press forward, a Queen popping through. He's going to grab this Queen and knock that down. A few Zerglings continue forward as well. These Roaches want to get by. Just going to be seeing our Ravagers setting up also, as that Queen will continue to take a few hits. Roaches We'll continue to take some shots here. A couple of corrosive bars onto the prison. And we have extra stalkers rallying in as well, so continue to come on through. Again, just going to be seeing a hatch taking a little bit more damage. Disruptor shot, boom, for a group of Ravagers. And yeah, stalkers will just continue to make their way through this at the moment. A couple of drones still being pulled on in. This does feel as though we have got ourselves Solar on a defense, I think. I mean, it's getting close. He does lose this hatchery. He has the in-base, so he still has a fort. I mean, we're still killing probes with the mutas, although the muta count is now going down. I just can't believe that Trigger's going to be able to push through with pure Stalker and a Disruptor. That just doesn't seem like enough to really break into this army, and that's the issue. You're the one coming out really low on workers in comparison. Is it playable? Yeah, it probably is playable. Trigger's going to keep on being aggressive, get straight back in here for killing this hatch. And now this army just settles down once again. With the Stalkers back to the center of the map here, the few meters will... I mean, they could hit this base. Bunch of freebie probes right there. 2 probes going down, make it 3. Stalkers will get rid of a creep team and the few meters out around the right side. And continue to press on in. The creep just continue to get knocked down here. Charge is building from Trigger. I mean, I like the idea, right, though? I don't think it's a wrong idea. It's just... I don't see what he's going to do to win this game out. I'd love to see more disruptors and so on, but he's going into those as well. He just doesn't have the army he needs, right? I mean, he's basically on like a timing attack army, and the timing attack should have hit 4 minutes ago. Which, to be fair, it did. But I mean, even then, his army's worse than what it was 4 minutes ago, right? He had Immortals then. Yeah, Solar's more or less maxed out. It's going to be time for him to start flinging units at Trigger. Now, Solar's not had a crazy work count throughout this, so he can't trade super inefficiently. That's going to be one thing to note. Now, this is rough for Trigger, though, because suddenly Trigger's out of position. He actually blinks forward here. Let's see what we can do. The Disruptor second-guessed itself a little bit. One Disruptor will actually be saved by the other Disruptor shot. Probes are going down, and Valence hit into the mineral line over here. The entirety of this army of Trigger, though, it needed to be in a defensive setup against this army of Solar. And obviously being out on the map like this just isn't going to do it. The Banes probably could have cancelled a lot of these Zealots that were warping in, but... you know what, we hit the Prism down with the Biles, and Solar just has a little bit too much. This is going to be GG's, and Solar will open his campaign today with a 1-0 lead over Trigger in the best-of-5 quarterfinals. Solar leads 1-0. Craft is good, generally, as we have in the bottom left-hand side. The red Protoss player down again. Let's see if he can fight back from Basilisk. It's Trigger. Gains from On-Site Gaming, the Beast of a Zerg player, Solar. No pylon scout from Trigger, which I believe means that this hatchery first should go down on location from Solar, so we'll be able to get that down without issue. Start us off in this game number 2. And drone will come for a wonder. Like I say, no probe nearby, so you can put this hatchery down without issue. And the gateway building up from Trigger here, so just going to get that started as the probe makes its way back to the main base. Yeah, no scout from Trigger then, so just absolutely deciding to go no scout. And that just means he's playing a bit blind, playing a bit scary, right? So you get a little bit of a boosted economy when you don't scout, but obviously you don't have the preparation against any type of early pool, aggression. You just don't have that information, so it's a roll of the dice. And obviously, but by the time Solar knows it's no scout, it's kind of too late to do those early attacks. But if Solar had just blindly decided to go for an early attack, this is the kind of game where Trigger would be in a lot of trouble. So it's nice to mix this in every now and again. It's just you can't be too cheeky too much of the time, right? So, yeah, definitely one thing to note. As our Nexus goes down. And yeah, so far pretty peaceful. Nexus into Cybercore. And still opting to not even send the probe across the map. I know that usually if you scout in Cybercore, a lot of people still call it a no scout because you don't really scout in time to save yourself from anything you usually scout for early, so in this case Trigger will just keep his probe at home. As we play on Tropical, I think this, I know I said Stargate last time, Moondance is a shorter map, it makes sense to play Glaives there. I think this was one where we definitely do see at the very least a Stargate based opening. Maybe we go Glaives after, maybe we do something a little bit different. Yeah, I think we open Stargate at the very least. And see what we can do. There it is. Stargate goes down. It's obviously a pylon that kind of suggests Stargate as well, because you're putting the Stargate as far to the front as possible. Typically, you will take this third base, so it's not like it's exposed from the low ground for too much of the game. Especially against Zerg. Zerg don't have a lot of attacks that punish buildings on the edges here. Maybe if you like take this expansion, then you go mutas, and the mutas can hit this very easily, or like a few roaches will probably eventually get it. You know, corrosive vials will reach, but again, the whole idea is you take this base, and if you're losing this base, you're probably not worried about the Stargate. You probably have bigger issues on your hands, so. Link speed is the choice from Solar. Well, I mean, if that's even really a choice, it's kind of just the normality. This Adept will not shade out. Again, just Trigger playing completely blind, has no idea what's happening on the other side of the map. He is just playing single player mode at the moment as the Stalker hits the Overlord a little bit. Again, because he doesn't know what's up, he will not move the Stalker out of the wall. So being extremely cautious, doesn't want to be caught off guard by suddenly a flood of Zerglings or something as he's chasing the Overlord. He doesn't want to be kind of baited by this Overlord out of position, an empty wall, and Ling's having a very good time. Obviously, Solar isn't blind because he's scouted with this Overlord, but he has only seen the natural, and he's maybe not completely sure of the Oracle coming up, because it could have been a bit of a mind game on the Warp Gate timing. This Oracle will begin to move its way to the upper right-hand side. So, Oracle on a bit of a journey. Heading to the upper right. Second Oracle in production. 2 Queens immediately in position, so Solar is on top of this before it even begins. That Oracle will get absolutely nowhere. Turned around by the couple of Queens. And now we just have Queens, Lings, and Drones continuing to produce. Solar has a couple of Queens in the main and some Zerglings pulling back to the upper right-hand corner. Nexus, Probe, all of that continuing here. Our Oracle still building up as well. It's going to be Oracle number 3 then, so it is going to be a triple Oracle. Obviously, triple Oracle can be a bit more aggressive. It can be a little bit more kind of, heavily diving onto drones and mineral lines and absorbing some damage. You can obviously still have 2 Oracles harassing drones as well, while you leave one at home defensively. So there's a lot of versatility with triple Oracle. Of course, is a bigger investment on the Stargate play to begin with, as we actually get 5 drones. No, we're going to lose an Oracle. An Oracle for 4 drones is a little bit sad. Because now you lose so much of the versatility of the triple Oracle as well, especially, so... got a little greedy there. I mean, I can understand wanting to chase those drones. It's just not worth losing the Oracle, though. Lings immediately get 1 probe on the counter as well. And Trigger, as this Twilight Council comes online, we'll just add 4 additional gateways. So straight to 6 gates. No Forge, right? So maybe... I was going to say maybe we could just see, like, Charge and Templar Archives. But actually, are just going to start Blink, and maybe a very aggressive Blink attack coming from Trigger if he doesn't add a Forge on. Doesn't look towards the upgrades to kind of keep this game going. Very intriguing as our feelings make their way over back home. A couple of Oracles will be flying on forward, so these 2 Oracles together make their way into the natural. Queen will be there immediately. Some damage onto the Oracles. We're going to get rid of 1 and get rid of 2 drones. The Oracle is pretty low HP, though. Pulls back out over the side. A few drones going to split between a couple of different extractors. The Spire will start on the back of the natural. Spire on the back of the natural. Blink is halfway done here from Trigger. And these couple of Stalkers will get rid of the Overlord. So Overlord goes down. Stalkers, Adepts, making their way through the center of the map. A few Lings are going to go diving by toward the lower left-hand corner as well. We do have that 3rd hatchery. Oh, sorry, 4th hatchery. I'm thinking of it like a Protoss player for some reason. 4th hatchery coming up. 2 units already poking and prodding at the front here. And we'll get rid of a creep tumor to begin with as well. So, digging down a little bit. It's obviously don't have Blink yet. Just again, Solar building into that Spire again. The scouting was not great last game. This time we have Oracles, which make scouting easier, but the Oracles are currently kind of busy kind of helping at the front with the Stalkers, so they're not going to scout. So this might be kind of difficult to see the Spire coming up. At least it will be a lot of Stalkers and a lot of Blink pressure, to begin with. So it's not like the meters are going to be completely uncounted. But obviously you need to be careful still that these meters don't build and fly around the map to the other side while your Stalkers are all on the offensive. That's one thing you're going to have to be cautious of, as Roaches, Queens, Lings, pressing forward, Stalkers taking a little bit of damage. Just going to be seeing Stalkers again just not really doing enough. Obviously, they're not reinforced by a prism or anything either, so reinforcements are coming from across the map. If reinforcements are already here, I'd actually maybe be a little bit afraid for Solar. He will set up this next stasis with just a handful of Zerglings. That's absolutely fine. This is more troubling when you get like half your Roaches caught in a stasis, and You can see he feels comfortable because he's building 7 mutalisks, so while under attack builds the mutas, he does not feel as though he's in trouble here at all. It's going to be 11 mutas, so quite a serious commitment. 2 mutalisks. There's Solar running down this right-hand side. Lings and Roaches coming through, looking to get a couple more Stalker kills. Oracle's helping out with that Pulsar Beam when they can. Here comes like almost 2 rounds of reinforcements at the same time from Trigger. So in we go. Let's see if this will be enough. They are going to be seeing the mutas spawn as well, so you're aware of the mutas now. Are the mutas going to join this fight, or are they going to go across the map? Looks like they're going to join this fight. Solar's maybe a bit aware of the fact that he doesn't quite have enough just yet. Stalker's having to blink back. Like, honestly, right now is where if you actually had a Prism to warp in, I actually think Trigger might win the game. It's just not having the reinforcements come instantly into the battle, and obviously you could have had a few Zealots added on perhaps, but yeah, he's not actually warped in back at home, but you can kind of see that as well in the supplies. Both those Oracles are low HP, and it looks as though Trigger is going to be pushed back here. Muta Roach Ling is going to chase Trigger all the way down the bottom side of the map. The Mutas will continue through, the Oracles continue to take damage. One falls, the other falls. And yeah, Trigger in a full-on retreat at the moment. As Lings continue forward, the Roaches too. And the Stalkers just having to blink back, stay out of trouble, very best they can for the moment. +1 melee upgrade, building on the Evo chamber. And just still seeing Stalkers back into the center of the map. Our charge, our +1. All continue to build here from Trigger. And Stalkers push into the middle of the map now. Knock down a creep tumor as we go, and an overlord at the front. The thing is, I mean, this is what happened last game. Trigger's actually on a worker lead, which is nice, but his army quality is very low. Now our 14 mutalisks on the map, and they're just joining up together. I don't think Trigger can really win a straight-up fight, honestly. It's a lot of Lings, and it's a lot of mutas. The thing is, with mutas, if you don't have enough anti-air against them, they will begin to swarm you and do very well, so it's definitely got to be a slight concern at the very least. Ling Roach pulls back away over to the right. The mutas will actually finally peel across to go across the map. We have been building Phoenix. We've got 1 patrolling. We've got a 2nd producing. Not sure if that immediately is going to be enough to necessarily save the day here. They just come in. They're going to knock down an initial Stalker. The battery goes down. The Lings begin to flood at the front. The Zealot's getting fully surrounded. The Roach is coming through. The mutas are just going to turn in, pick off that Phoenix, and then just going to start swarming all the way into this mineral line cell. A lot of probes are going to begin dropping down here. 6 workers killed. I mean, the fact that the entire army's just made it into the main base has got to be problematic. There's a few different pylons here that obviously could be pretty prime targets as well. The mutas are going to chase the Phoenix a little bit. We're going to go after the Temple Archives too. And just more mutas on the way. I think Solo's recognizing that he's got this game potentially in a very scary place for Trigger. Trigger is definitely going to struggle to deal with this amount of mutas. We've even seen the mutas committing onto Stalkers, so he really believes that Trigger will just not get enough anti-air up to deal with these mutas, and that's why he's doubling down on them. Was that a mistake? 13 probes killed, but actually equal worker counts right here. We recall over to this base, a cannon to help. The Stalkers get here. How many of these mutas can they clean out? A Phoenix to help as well. We blink back into the mineral line, trying to get choked up, trying to protect against these Zerglings, which Zealots are helping against, but boy, there are just not enough Stalkers. There is just not enough anti-air. Actually kind of frustrating for Trigger, right? It feels like this is the 2nd game in a row where he's just barely not quite going to have enough against the mutas at first. And obviously it snowballs pretty heavily from there, but yeah, it's just so close, I feel like, actually. I feel like if you go back a minute or so, you can actually see, you know, if Trigger has a couple extra things here or there, just how different this game could have been. Hatchery will go down bottom right as Solar will expand to a 5th. Remember that Solar, again, has been pretty all-in. And I say all in because 67 drones on 4 bases is not exactly a huge macro game from Solar. He doesn't have the insane amount of economy, and if Trigger had been able to trade efficiently enough, obviously that's not been the case here as he's lost pretty much his entire army now, but if he'd been able to trade efficiently enough, there is a world where obviously you can, there's a world where you can you would have been in a great spot because, again, you're just mining that much more than the Zerg. Fun game, honestly. It's like, he lost a little bit too much time. Like, if he doesn't lose so much in this fight, imagine his army graph continues, like, back up. Like, that's the difference that they're at. And obviously then, the army of Solar is really just not that effective. So I think that's the difference. This fight 4 minutes ago, when I think Trigger was, like, just fighting over here, and that's the first time the mutas really came into play, and the mutas kind of swarmed him. If that fight doesn't go that way, and Trigger maintains his army, and this army graph is much more similar, then I think, I mean, you can see that Trigger even fought pretty decently against the army. I mean, Solo definitely can't play it the way he did play it. It becomes a very different game, so yeah, little things that obviously could look very different, but so far Sola is in absolute control of this series, and Trigger still struggles to find a map against Sola, just in general. In the bottom left, looking to win a map. Just a map, just take it one map at a time. Let's see if you can get one on the board. It is Trigger from Basilisk Gaming. Not even Basilisk Gaming, just Basilisk. I don't know why I do that. I put gaming at the end of Basilisk every time. It's just Basilisk, guys. Just Basilisk. Don't listen to this warty propaganda of Basilisk Gaming or eSports or anything like that. In the top right, it is on-site gaming. This time there is a gaming after it. It is Solar in the top right in the blue colors. Now is Zerg. Game 3 of this best of 5. Solar, a map away from a semi-final date. Obviously, we know his semi-final opponent will be Max Pax. Again, Max Pax a free win over Clem. Unfortunately, we don't get to see that Max Pax Clem epic. Such is life, guys. I'll make it up to you sometime. We'll find a way to make that happen or something. But, yeah. Solar and Trigger getting set up here for game number 3. And the probe of Trigger going for a little scouty scout to the upper right-hand side. Hatchery going down on the natural extractor in production. I'm going to start the pool as well. So Hatch, Gas, and Pool. Obviously, this time it is a scout from Trigger. Obviously, talked about the no scout we saw last game. This time, we do scout, so just not being kind of greedy repeatedly. Obviously, if you do that repeatedly, then someone as good as Solar will pick up on that, and will figure out a good way to punish it as well. So, definitely. It's actually one of the interesting things to see, like, throughout a series, as a series builds up over time. Kind of how that kind of pans out and everything, so very cool. Probe on a little patrol here. And just seeing the Cybercore coming up in the moment. Everything's pretty normal, guys. Again, early game ZvP is, yeah, just kind of chill. I guess we're in for a lot of ZvP, right? We already know that upper semi-final at this point of the tournament is going to be Serral versus Hero. And then obviously if Solar wins this, it's Solar versus Max Pax in the semis. Could be a lot of ZvP today, guys. Could be a lot of ZvP as a couple of Lings will come out chasing this probe, pushing it away down through the center of the map. Ling speed coming up, a couple of drones and Queens continue to produce. And that robotics facility is going to start from Trigger. So Robo first generally indicates quite a... It's kind of weird because, like, in this matchup, you kind of need to have some amount of pressure, and Robo first then becomes pretty aggressive because you're going to get a Prism early. Sometimes you rush out the Robo Bay and you see a fast Disruptor, or maybe sometimes something like a Colossus timing. Robo first, like, it's not the most common way to open. It really is, you know, behind the Stargate and the Twilight counts as the main two openings. The Robo is that tech structure which does not see as much love, but yeah, I mean, Robo coming up here. And we'll see what we can do with this as the Overlord just sits and chills at the front. We'll get another gateway down, continue this wall off. And there is actually just a Ling holding this watchtower. Overlord heading toward the main. Solo would love to get information as to what this tech structure is. It is a fast Robo Bay. So we're going to go into probably a Disruptor drop. I wonder if Trigger turns this into like a Disruptor drop into like one Colossus and an all-in. That is something you sometimes see. Saw this... with, I mean, this was like the Zound build a lot of the time, right? The one Colossus, the all-in. You guys watched the Home Story Cup? You might have seen the 100-kill Colossus game. That's pretty cool. I think that might have been the most on the edge of my seat I've been in the entirety of the tournament. But yeah, definitely some potential there. Just as a reminder, just in terms of like timing of this tournament and when it was played, because obviously this was played preemptively prior to the day you guys are watching it. This was played a couple of weeks before Christmas Day, I believe. So I think it was the 12th of December that these games were actually played. So it was pre-Home Story Cup. So just in case you see something like, oh, cool, that's you know, that's something which you saw in Home Story Cup and he's using it. No, these guys did this before Home Story Cup, you know. So just thought that might be important for context. I'm not sure if it's necessarily important for context here. I mean, the Zound build has been around a long time. It's not like oh my god, look at this, it's brand new or something. But just in case, you know, throughout the rest of the day or maybe early into the day already, you've seen something like, hey, that was like a Home Story Cup thing. Yeah, that's maybe worth knowing that these games were played pre-Home Story Cup. Disruptor is going to take a lift and is going to go on an adventure out to the upper right side. The Observer from Trigger hanging around. And a few additional gateways just all coming online. So Trigger going to drop all of these down. There's going to be 6 gates in total being added on here. And there's the Colossus. So this is indeed going to be that 2-base all-in. A lot of the ways you see this succeed, though, is to find, you know, really kind of a little bit of a misdirection of your opponent. Like, put this 3rd base down. Make it look like you're really going to 3 bases. I don't like this variation of it where Trigger just sort of says, yeah, I'm just going to build on 2 bases, because to me that means Solar should be prepared. He should be aware. As the Lings, no! I was going to say don't let them in, but actually surrounding the sentries is just as good. 1 sentry down, 2, 3, all 4. Jackpot for Solar. All of the sentries gone. Massive amount of gas wasted. That is such a huge loss. I mean, this is bad, man. That is a massive loss. I mean, you just don't have any force fields to help against the initial wave of this while you build up a bit. You only have 1 disruptor here too. I don't think this works. I just don't see it. I feel like all the strength of this attack has already been taken away. Trigger's floating a ton of money. I think this is absolutely backfiring massively for Trigger. Counterattack Lings will force warp-ins at home, and maybe the Cybercore will fall. Over here, well, let's see. Already the Disruptor kind of venturing a bit too far forward. Roaches do get stuck behind the queens a bit, which makes this a better fight for our pros player. Disruptor shot lands, takes down 1 queen. The other couple are low. The Colossus picking up a lot of the kills. It's hitting a lot of the roaches and queens, though. Generally, the Colossus wants to be hitting the Zergling so it can get rid of those kind of cheap, easy initial units. The Lings across the map, by the way. There was a re-wall with a Cybercore here, but they're about to break through the gateway as well. The Prism goes down. I believe it just lifted the Colossus into it as well. The Disruptor falls, and oh, geez, this is... I mean, this was always going to be disastrous, I think, for Trigger. The moment the sentries went down, and they're just continuing in that direction. Lings are in, the mineral line probes are falling. Trigger is retreating. Solar is looking extremely good to perhaps advance through to the semi-finals here today, because this has been a dominant performance. I don't think... Like, don't get me wrong, I could see in the games, like, a couple things that could go differently where Trigger is, like, in a playable situation and in a winning situation. But those things never came to be, so it does feel as though Trigger is just consistently being kind of the underdog in this match, and that Solar has pretty much always been prepared, has always been set up. And yeah, right now, continue to chase down Adepts and Stalkers. These will fall. Solar is really just carving his way through this Protoss army and setting himself up for the semi-final appearance. Again, that will be against MaxPax. The Adept make it 2, gonna lift back into the Prism. Sorry, a Zealot and a Stalker, not a single Adept. You know, sometimes you get it wrong. Yeah, I mean, does it matter at this point? The Roaches are gonna walk into the natural, and, well, that Disruptor shot could have been big if Solar wasn't watching for a split second. Boom, dead center on the Roaches. Maybe that would have done it. At least would have bought you some time. Don't think it necessarily puts you back in the game. Down 20 workers, no 3rd base, etc. But, yeah, maybe could have given you an opportunity at the very least, you know, an idea to play around. Right now, obviously, we're still in this kind of hopeless scenario. Zealots are slow, so they don't have charge. The Roaches just kite them. We're basically waiting for this Disruptor charge to be set to go again, and we dodge back the other way, so the Roaches don't have to worry about it. Lings, actually more Roaches even, just in the natural, working their way through, and Solar continue to take fight after fight. That will just be good for him. Solar is going to take game number 3, and it's a sweep in this best of 5. 3-0. Absolutely no problem at all for Solar. And like I say, to me, this is a very convincing series. He was, based on how the games went, Solar was always in control, was always feeling comfortable, was almost never in a disadvantaged position, and he really made it look as though he was just meant to win this series. So, unfortunately for Trigger, he will not get his first win against Solar today, and he will be eliminated. But obviously, Trigger, one of our players that came through the qualifiers, still nice for him to walk away with $125. Solar will continue his journey in this event. Again, up next for him will be MaxPax.